Hi, this is Ben from Propane Fitness, and in this video I want to talk about a couple of things to do with my training and diet and what I'm doing going into the new year. So I'm sure if you're in moderately good shape and people know you go to the gym, you'll get endless questions about your training and diet, and how many bicep curls do you have to do before you look like Chris Hemsworth, for example. So with my training at the moment, I'm trying to keep it pretty basic. It's just an evolution of everything I've done over the years, what I've learned works for me. So on Monday, this is my split in the middle. On Monday, chest and back, Tuesday legs, Wednesday rest, Thursday shoulders, and Friday arms. Saturday and Sunday both rest days, all on Sunday. Sometimes I'll go and do abs if I want to get out of the house. I'm sure that's not normal. Most people will probably stay in and watch a film. But anyway, Monday chest and back, Tuesday legs, that's reminiscent of Lane Norton's power hypertrophy type splits, and that's something I've really enjoyed in the past. So on those days, those are like power days where I'll do heavy compounds for chest and back, for legs. So that means on Monday I do heavy dumbbell inclines, heavy bend over dead stop rows with dumbbells, and dead stop just meaning that you reset between each rep, so the dumbbell rests on the floor and then you initiate the row movement again after pausing. That's something I got from John Meadows and Shelby Starnes. John Meadows is an absolutely amazing resource for movements, like innovative variations on movements, and if you go on his YouTube channel, there's some incredible stuff on there that really you need to go and check it out. I mean, stuff like dip shrugs, for instance, I've started doing for chest after seeing him doing those, and those are the only thing I felt have made a significant difference in my upper chest development, apart from moving over to incline dumbbell bench. Dip shrugs are kind of weird. They're basically like the inverse of a shrug. Well, I sort of hinted at in the name, the inverse of a shrug. So if you're going to do a dumbbell shrug, you do this, and then that's the negative of a dip shrug. So you press down, contracting the chest. That's all there is to it. You do it on dip bars, obviously, not with dumbbells in your hands. That wouldn't really work. So on Tuesday for legs, I'm doing front squats and stiff leg deads. Now, I don't like back squats. They put too much strain on my shoulders, and I feel like they're too much of a lower back and glute movement for me. Front squats feel much more in the quads. Obviously, if you look at the research, I mean, it really says that there's the same level of activation in the quads with front and back squats, but it just practically, that's not what I've felt with regards to my leg development. I felt that front squats seem to be more quad dominant. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know. It's just what I feel when I actually do front squats. It feels like a quad movement, so that's why I stick with them. And with my shoulder issues, having had rotator cuff problems, front squats are a much better shoulder health movement for me. Shoulder healthy movement for me. And with regards to stiff leg deads, I don't do deads for back because I just don't feel they're a particularly useful movement for back for me. I prefer rows. Stiff leg deads, I do them sort of constant tension style, so I feel there's a fair amount of lower back involvement there anyway, so I don't feel like I'm missing out. Everything else is just volume, like leg press and hack squat. It's fairly basic sort of hypertrophy rep ranges, nothing really interesting to talk about there. For shoulders, I'm doing maybe ramping up to one top set on like a seated machine press. I don't like doing a lot of pressing for shoulders because having had shoulder issues and feeling like I'm already doing pressing for chest, I don't see any need to duplicate effort there. I prefer doing, and practically I feel there's better results from doing things like lateral raises, face pulls, and for rear delts I really like, again, John Meadows' dumbbell hang and swings. Those are fantastic. I mean, again, just go on his YouTube channel, you'll find all sorts of, it's an absolute goldmine. You'll find loads of things like that which you can implement in your training and probably make a huge difference. If you've been struggling to find movements that you can really feel which work for you. For arms, I've found that my arms used to be a massive weak point, and when I started training twice a week, I noticed a huge improvement. And so with this split, when I do arms on the Friday, it's pretty much just volume. With chest and back on the Monday, obviously I'll be hitting arms anyway with those compound movements, so sort of like I'm doing them twice a week without doing it explicitly. On Friday, it's pretty much for triceps extension movements because, again, no duplication of effort. You're already hitting the other heads, when you do pressing. So the long head's the one you need to focus on, really. That's the one that's been asleep during the pressing, pretty much. So that's sort of dumbbell tricep extension stuff. For biceps, I just do a mixture of things like crossbody hammer curls. Again, John Meadows. I just keep saying his name over again. That's if you go on his YouTube channel, you'll see the crossbody hammer curls. Another one I do is one of Dante from DC Training. His reverse grip cable curls, really good movement. Apart from that, I just tend to vary it. Nothing really fixed there. I'll just go and do whatever I feel like. With regards to diet, I've approached diet in a number of different ways over the years, and what works for me seems to be moderate to high protein, moderate to high carbs, low to moderate fat. At the minute, the macros are pretty much like 250 grams of protein up to 300 grams, probably more like 275 on an average day, 200 to 250 grams carbs, 40 to 60 grams fat, and that's pretty much divided macros, about 4 meals a day, not doing any fasting, carb backloading, anything fancy like that at all. Apart from the fasting I do when I'm asleep, which is unavoidable. And people associate propane fitness with fasting and backloading. You might ask why I'm not doing that at the moment. It's because I have a massive tendency to overanalyze, to overthink things, to make things too complicated and stress about it. And this is just a way of paring everything back to basics, keeping it simple, finding out what works in terms of just those basic numbers, those macros, and then maybe adding in things like backloading or fasting as tools when they're needed. I've done all sorts of crazy things like ADF and stuff. I've done keto diets, and I really feel like at the moment one of my biggest issues, and it might be an issue for you too, is keeping things simple, is trying to remember that the basics about progression and consistency and putting in the time. And that leads me on to the final thing, which is about going to New Year's, the motivation to achieve goals, and how I'm really doing that is just again about focusing on what's important, which is about going in the gym, feeling like you've trained hard. Like if you're feeling really strong, going in and trying heavier dumbbells on incline bench, or getting more reps. So basically weight and rep progression every week. That's just a complicated way of saying that. And really just progressing in some way every time you go in the gym, making sure that when you leave, you know that you've done something to move slightly closer to your goals, without overthinking it, without having to write things down in a spreadsheet, having to obsess about the details. Same thing with the diet, like I said, trying to keep it simple, not obsessing about details, focusing on the important things, which are the macros, which are the practical variation. I'm trying to lean out of the minute, so really just how is my weight changing, how am I looking in the mirror, not overthinking it in terms of, well, should I have fasted for 14 hours, should it have been 15 hours, should I have 5 grams of leucine between meals, should I have had 10 grams of MCT oil with my coffee this morning, things like that, which really make no real practical difference or no significant practical difference. And so going into the new year, over Christmas and New Year, pretty awful for diet. I'm sure a lot of you might have indulged. I had the best intentions going in Christmas of sticking to a sensible diet, and didn't do that at all. And I drank a lot, and on New Year's it was horrendous. I've just accepted things like that as momentary blips. That in the grand scheme of things, what is a week out of the year, or a couple of days out of that week, out of an entire year, really it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. If you're training and diet being moderately consistent over that time, then 1 or 2 days will do nothing to harm your progress. Some things you can't predict. You can't predict the weather. You don't know, for instance, if you're going to be late for work because of traffic, and you've got to try and not stress out about things like that. So with your diet and training, sometimes things will crop up the way. you can't go to the gym, you can't necessarily get the meal in that you planned. So that's what I'm trying to avoid, is all of that stress. I mean, for instance, recently I booked in a tattoo, and that was 8 hours where I was just lying down for most of it, with a guy poking me with a needle, and I couldn't really fit my meals around that, and ended up just getting some convenience food and did my best to fit the macros in, try and estimate what those were. Stuff like that happens, and what I've learned is overthinking stuff is a killer. You look at the people that have made the most progress over the years in bodybuilding, in powerlifting, things like that. A lot of these guys aren't sitting down and thinking about the timing of their waxy maize and whey isolate shake after training, or how many milligrams of DHA they should have in their fish oil capsules, and whether or not they should have those with their carb meals when they're backloading, and whether or not they should be using cinnamon with sweet potato or not, or alpha lipoic acid everything which is sort of counters your progress, because it makes you take time out of your day to stress about things. Everything like that, you should cut it out. I mean, cut out anything which is making you stressed, and which is just getting in the way of you and getting the fundamentals right. Because I'm the sort of person that would do this. I would sit down and think, well, I've read a study which says you should have creatine away from meals because it might hinder the absorption. And then read something else where it says if you have your creatine in your waxy maize shake, it'll pull in more of the creatine in the muscle cells and all of this nonsense. And practically those things just make such a little difference, that the amount of time you put into it, the amount of effort you put into it, you could have just been putting that effort into real life stuff, or just in getting the basics right, and you would have made more progress in the long run.